on 10.2 would be one thing that we.
Sounds good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Always impressive to see who comes on a 65-degree day. We're gonna, and thank you all for putting more chairs out. Much appreciated. If you can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, welcome. I really appreciate everyone showing up tonight. Obviously, most of you hear about the budget. So here's how it's going to work tonight. We're going to go through our agenda. The first thing when we have public session, that's just if you have anything specific to say about the agenda, not about the budget. There'll be time to talk about that later. Then, after we go through everything, if you have the agenda, 10.1 is the budget public forum. And the way, and I'll explain more of how that's going to work, but basically we're going to have a discussion among the board, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for folks who have some specific questions about the different versions that we have. People have had it, right? The stack of different options. And that's really kind of what we're focusing on tonight. So I'll say more about that before we begin the public forum. But for now, we're just going to go through a few items before we get to that. And the first one is the approve or amend the minutes of March 25th, our last board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Megan. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that passes. 5.0 adjustments to agenda. I think the only thing we want to do is if you look through at the end, you'll see 11.0 as executive session, but I'd like to move the board goals before it so that we essentially end the meeting with the board goals. We move into executive session. So then when we get back, we're just talking about other dates and adjourning. So is everyone okay with that? All right, so that's what we're going to do. And then, oh, right, and then we have to add under the field trip request, there's one more that we got late, and it'll be 10.2D, which is a big trip to France. Okay, so we got to vote on that one. And sorry, Kurt, you can't go, but there's no room to go to France. I think all the spots are taken. Okay, so that will be, and that's it, right? Okay. So then 6.0, public session. This is if anyone has any concerns or questions about anything on the agenda, not counting the budget, because you'll have time to speak to that later. Okay. Then let's move straight to the student board rep report. Caroline and Aurora.
Hi. So the mainsail assembly is quickly approaching. That's where SCLC just honors a member of the community. AP exams start next week, so a lot of students are like really preparing for those right now. And then Unified Literacy is attending a reading roundup conference in Augusta this Wednesday. And then we'll be teaming up with Unified Science to go to the Botanical Gardens next Wednesday. And spring sports are in full swing. And today we had a boys tennis match, baseball, and girls lacrosse games.
So for non-Morse things, BMS got to take a trip to see to take a trip here to see the Bath Tech programs. And a new 10-week program has been introduced at BMS called LEADS, which is short for Law Enforcement Against Drug and Violence. And it's a class that's focused on goal setting, decision making, and substance use prevention in young students. The Credit Pathways program end of year ceremony will be Friday, June 7th at 12 p.m. in the Morse Auditorium. And recently they have been working on erosion control efforts with KELT, and they've also been working with the BMS students who have been trying to change their recess area. And Freaky Friday was performed on April 5th and 6th, and over 900 attendees went despite the storm and power outages, which is pretty awesome. And over 52 students were involved, and at least 25 parent/adult volunteers were there and helped out. So thank you to everyone who was a part of all of that.
Great, thank you both. Any questions for either of them on activities happening all around the district? No? Well, thank you very much. And Patrick, superintendent's report?
Yeah, just a few items. Battle of the Books, our annual academic competition that is just a great event. First of all, a special thank you to Jason Libby for hosting it for me this year since I was out of town. But to the students, they put in a lot of work, and also to our librarians in the district and other staff, thank you for making it so successful each year. BMS, 6th grade Reed House, hosted a military appreciation breakfast at the Legion Hall, and our students interacted with active service members and veterans who shared their stories with them, and a very impactful community and learning event for our students. Dyke Newell School and Bath Tech, kind of a neat partnership where Dyke Newell students are coming up and getting their haircuts and also manicures if they choose to, so it's been a nice cooperation. And then lastly, I'll just mention, well, we have a lot of author visits going on right now, a lot of spring concerts. Our unified programming here at Morse, as you know, was featured on the local news, but also in a recent edition of the Maine Educator. It was a big focus, and I'd like to thank Don Lee, Jonathan Fisk, Julie LaRosa, and Charlie Bingham for providing this valuable PD, as well as the students and staff and parents that participated in the panel that day. And then lastly, I'll just pass it on to Katie. She's not on our agenda tonight, but just to talk about the later start time kind of update.
So I just wanted to draw the board's attention to an email I sent with a shared Google Doc today, because it's your homework assignment for the next meeting. On that, you'll find all the articles, some videos, and notes from all of the different parties that the school start time committee talk to in order to give you enough background information to read in advance for us to have a discussion about that topic at the May meeting. The only thing that isn't attached, but I will attach it later, is you'll see the draft of the questions that are going out to families, to students, and to our community members. And those will come back in around May 15th. And also, so I'll pass the survey results along as well and attach them to that document as soon as they're finished. You can see the questions though right now. And that's all.
Great. Any questions for either of them? All right, thank you. Financial report, Deb.
Hello, everybody. I'm still here. Okay, so tonight we're looking at March, the end of March, and we have spent $27.5 million out of our $41 million budget. We have $10 million encumbered, and that's for remaining salaries. There basically is 3, 4, 5, 9 more salary payrolls that are all processed before the end of June. Basically, we encumber those amounts. This is a little bit what we've spent on this report. It's a little bit less than last year, and it's only because of the debt service payment. But that has come through and been processed. That's the final one for this year. And that was subsidy that actually came in to process that payment. Revenues, we're at 30,076.11%. And once again, the revenue that's increased more than any this year is our interest on investments. So we're able to increase that next year for our budget. ARP rescue plan, we basically have spent 86%, and there's 14% remaining. We have a couple of building project, well, the outside projects to finish up before the end of the summer, and those funds will be gone. And that's it. Questions?
Great. Any questions for Deb? Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
So Deb, on your report, under the debt service, that includes both the local and the state
Correct.
combined, right?
Right.
And it was, okay. And the breakout is in our budget information about how that's separated, right? If I
Right.
go back to that. Okay.
Right.
Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
This was just an interest payment for the high school.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, thank you so much, Deb. Appreciate it. Okay, 9.0 is old business. And so this is a second reading of the board policies regarding ECAF, video surveillance on school property. This is an action item. Does anyone have any questions regarding this policy? If not, I'd like a motion. Yeah. Okay, Jennifer.
Move to approve.
Okay, and second by Jamie. Any further discussion or questions? No? All in favor then? Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. And see, it's just that easy. 10.0, new business. The budget public forum. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start with, because here's what's happening. This week, we are discussing the budget and the options that, if you picked up a copy when you came in, and we're going to go over those. What we're trying to do is get a feel from the board. We're not voting on it tonight, but we want to get some kind of, hopefully, consensus so that next week, when we have another meeting, special meeting a week from today, same time, 6 o'clock, we will then vote on one of the options that would go to the ballot. And we kind of need to hopefully have a direction, because Deb has to create the warrant that hopefully we can sign then. I mean, if things shift, we can adjust with it, but that's the ideal if we can make that happen timing wise to get it to all the towns and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of the discussion we want to have tonight. So I want to start with the board to kind of see where folks are and what they're thinking and what questions they have. Then we'll open it up to the public to ask some questions about any of these options. I just want to say we heard you loud and clear about a lot of the positions last time. That's why these kind of 5 positions exist, or options exist, because different ones take into account keeping certain positions and, other ones eliminate certain positions, but it should be fairly clear. But certainly we can take questions about that, or if folks out there, after you're looking at it, you favor one over another, certainly you can tell us why. But I want to start with the board to see where we are. And actually, I'm going to ask Patrick first, if he has, from the administrative side, if you have a recommendation of one that, from the administrative point of view, you feel most comfortable putting forward. And then we can give us a baseline, and then people can react and talk from there. Is that okay with the board? All right. So Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess, get right to it, my recommendation would be option 4 that the board has. And, it's a difficult balance that I think we're trying to strike here. We're trying to strike what's best for our students, but at the same time, trying to also be sensitive to that tax impact. And somebody asked me this question the other day, and I think we're at a point where the priority has to support the overall well-being of our students, socially, emotionally, overall well-being. So that option 4, for those of you that may not have it with you, would be the CPP program at Morse, elementary social work split amongst several different schools, nurse at Phippsburg becoming full-time, and guidance, additional guidance at Bath Middle School. And that, is that $400,000 option. I mean, it comes out to be 370 if you see it there, but it's the $400,000 option that you see in your backup. You know, could I sit here and advocate for more? Definitely. At the same time, trying to strike that balance between what we need for our students and what also is I guess responsible budget for the taxpayers at the same time. So I'll stop there and then let the board.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And I probably should, because we have the option 5 is on there, right? I mean, it's in the packet. No, but and 5 is in there, but in the cover sheet, we don't have what that is, do we? No, that's option 4. What I'm saying is, I just want to make clear that if you see just an alternate option is option 5, essentially. It's the last page, which is 500,000. It's an extra $100,000. Yeah. Oh, and so that one, you know, it's obviously a little higher with percentages to the towns. That obviously then could save another position.
Yeah, I think
two, but it's also kind of a
you're right.
buffer.
I mean, we put that in there as I guess another option. I think, you know, as you know from the discussions from the administrators through the budget process and the board discussions is, you know, another social worker at the elementary level in addition to this one. You know, library's been mentioned at BMS, that some people might have questions about that. So it just allowed for some other conversation to happen if.
A little more flexibility. So didn't want people to be confused by that option there. So it's not necessarily written in stone, but it is you know, if you went that extra one, it could provide a little more flexibility kind of deal. But you've heard from Patrick and his reasoning for option 4 and what that brings in a tough budget year and how it manages the towns. It manages, you know, what percentage we're asking for an increase from the towns while also including some of these positions. So I'd just like to hear from other board members as to what your thoughts are, what you've been thinking about, if any of these other options are more of what you're thinking, or, you know, if you have an opinion right now. Jamie?
Could I ask just a clarifying
Sure.
question? So option 4 would reduce social work to RSU1 currently, where option 5 or the alternate option would keep it the same as it is right now? Because if option 4 only has one elementary social work position,
Yeah, I believe I'd have to do the math, but I think it's that 1.0 that we would be losing.
okay. I think it concerns me to lose any social work in this day and age. That's the only question I have right now.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to what you're thinking or have questions? Yeah.
So more on the social work, it would be one person, and where would the person go? Is that to be determined on need? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to talk about that as an elementary group.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, if you're eliminating, you had 2, you have 1, then you have to talk about
Yeah. Okay.
how
And
do
then-
we stretch that? How do we make it work?
Okay. And the other question, I'm just not clear on. Negotiations with the teachers are still going on. Is that correct?
Negotiations are still going on.
So how
yes.
will that impact the budget? I mean,
It could impact it somewhat. I mean, that's where some of the extra money, we don't know fully yet. I think we're still in an okay range for what we were hoping, but yeah, we're not there yet. So that certainly could still impact, any of the contracts can still impact somewhat. Jen, did you have a?
Yeah, sure. The option 3 that Patrick recommended, there is a guidance at BMS. Was that, am I?
He mentioned option 4.
Oh, option 4.
If you want.
Oh, no, okay. No, it's okay. I want to make sure I'm on the right. Okay. So the guidance, so that's with the guidance position at BMS.
Right.
Am I correct that there's already a social worker at BMS already in this budget, right?
We have a social worker
Okay.
position at BMS, and we have a guidance person at BMS. This is an additional support person. We're calling it guidance because that's who we've had that. The person we've had through COVID is certified as a guidance counselor, but it's really, you could argue it's social work. I mean, it's working with students, the same type of theme.
So that would be 3 positions at BMS.
Yes, one social worker is primarily just for students with IEPs.
Okay. So that's option 4. So option 4 results in a 6.55% increase for the town of Woolwich, which is the highest increase for any of our towns. And I think that as we're kind of talking about this, it's easy to say 6.55 and percentages without actually saying how much does that actually cost in dollars too. So I think that when we get to this, I think maybe we should be talking frankly about the thousands of dollars that each taxpayer will have to pay for these additional services. And then I guess my last question would be, is there any place, are there any positions that could be taken out of our current budget in order to help mitigate or in exchange for these options that are put forward? Are there any other current programs and positions so these could be made budget neutral? I haven't heard anybody who's supporting the additional positions offer anything in terms of if we're shifting priorities, if we're going to shift away from other priorities in order to address these mental health priorities. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to, I mean, I know that to a lot of, at least non-labor, there are other labor positions that aren't being, renewed or included, but as far as other specific positions saying, okay, if we're adding these, we're cutting these others, that has not come into play yet. So no, I know what you're asking, but.
And just one thing, our original budget, even without any of these additional positions, was also a 4%, already started at a 4% increase. So that's like triple the increase that we've been asking our taxpayers to pay in the last 4 years. So before any new positions, just with the cuts that we did, without adding the COVID funded positions into this, it was already one of the biggest increases that we've seen in a lot of years for everybody. So I just want to, even being able to fund everything we already do, we were already at a 4% increase.
Yeah, okay.
I think, if you were to talk with Woolwich or Bath or Phippsburg, emergency personnel, police departments, and you ask them what's the number one issue, they're going to say mental health. So we're paying for it as taxpayers already when harm is done, whether it's arson or whether it's mischievous behavior or other different types of things. I want to point out something that Brandon Ward wrote in his monthly report, that with the current staffing that they have right now, student mental health continues to be our most significant concern. Our office support staff, school counselors, social work, dean of students, and myself are being kept very busy with students who are struggling. And those struggles show up in a myriad of ways. I think if you were to talk to administrators, their number one thing is going to be mental health. And so while none of us want to be in a position where we have to pay for it, I think it would be irresponsible to reduce in any way mental health services that RSU1 has currently right now. And that is why I would support the alternative option number 5, which would keep social work as it is, keep CPP, keep the nurse, and guidance at BMS, which we've heard over and over and over again from Brandon is his top priority. I think that, if we think back to the social workers who were here, they're in tears because this is like they pour their lives into this work. They pour their lives into these students. They take it home with them. And I think we just have to listen very, very carefully to what they're saying. And even though, yes, it is going to increase all of our taxes, and that is something none of us want, but I don't see how reducing it is going to make anything better in the long term, especially. And that's,
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Jamie, I don't disagree with you that the resource is needed. But what I haven't heard anybody say is, if we're going to do this, how can we balance out about not doing something else? Because we have these wonderful programs that go above and beyond for the enrichment of our children. And I believe wholeheartedly that I wish we could fund all of them. But instead of saying, we have this new need and we really need to do this, I'm not arguing that we need to deliver those services in the schools. I think the best place to deliver those services, but you know, we have to pay for them. So my question is, can we balance that cost by reducing? I mean, for example, if you look at the co-curricular budget, the total co-curricular budget, I think, is somewhere maybe around the CPP program. So could we say we're going to do less co-curricular services and so we can afford the CPP program? Are we going to say we're going to do less other services or less other positions so we can really, teachers say that their principals are saying mental health is the priority. Okay, what are we not going to do that we aren't legally required to do in order to cover this new need? Because I completely agree that the frontline people know what they need and are absolutely in need of these positions. I'm just saying, where can we transfer some things that we're already due to this? And nobody seems to be talking about that yet.
in my opinion, it's because we've already asked everyone to cut everything that they could. And I don't think we can take one and the other. I don't think it works that way.
Well, I mean, it can, but I think I think the question is what we've already taken, you know, we eliminated, because what did we do? It was the 1.2 million, right? Now we're building some of it back in, but we already cut 1.2 million. And when you start cutting now, you really would have to, I'm not saying, you know, I know what you're saying is, well, where would it come from? You'd have to start cutting staff positions. That's what it would come to make the kind of money. No, yeah, because we've cut all the non-labor down to almost nothing. So I'm just saying what you would be cutting. When you say co-curricular, what are you talking? You mean what? What specifically are you talking about?
Co-curricular in our budget.
Right, which covers
a lot of resources.
sports
No, actually.
or not?
I mean, athletics and stuff.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, have we looked at those, like I know programs, but if we're going to say we need more of these services, my question is, how do we just transfer what we do now in order, if these services are critical, in order to be able to provide these critical services, you know, through all of our other additional materials, our additional programming, not, you know, like classroom teachers conduct academics that are required by the main learning results, which is
Right.
legally we have to provide, but.
You mean some of the extra classes or extra programs that we've added? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think we should start by everything that we're not legally required
Mhm.
to provide.
Which are the
then-
extras?
Which are the co-curricular, is
Mhm.
my understanding. That we should use those to balance off if this is really our priority is addressing mental health. And we need to fund that ourselves, not fund it through the other means right now.
Mhm.
That we should say, let's put all of our additional money towards that. And then in the future, when we can afford to fund other programs, we can start funding other programs. But that if
Right, I
mental
understand
health
what you're
is
saying.
priority, and if it is, I agree, let's do it.
Right, but then you're
instead of an
talking,
and, let's do it as an or.
right. Go, Megan? Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like that's just kind of defeating the purpose of the mental health, because the co-curricular stuff are things that benefit students, many students that are also suffering from perhaps mental health. And so it just feels like, I don't know the term, it just feels like, yeah, you're defeating the purpose of putting in the social work when then you take away something else that brought joy and something to look forward to and such. I also want to speak to like the comment Jamie made about Brandon's. I don't have children at BMS anymore, but they're close to BMS age, and just the things I hear that happen at school. And then again, this is from, my kid's point of view, but I also work at a school where we send off kids. So I hear things. I'm in the know kind of what goes on. And it's just different. And to be in a school and parenting is different and kids are different. And yes, it stinks that we have to raise taxes, but everything else is getting raised. So why have we expected to keep the way things were going when everything else is? How is that possible? Businesses aren't going and saying, we're going to do a zero budget. And, so I just don't think it's possible in the world we're living in right now.
Thank you, Megan. Caroline?
Yeah, I just
Go ahead.
had a question, sort of backtracking, but like we said that co-curricular wasn't athletics related. Like, what are some examples of the co-curricular things?
I mean, co-curricular could be clubs, and activities, could be
Okay.
field trips.
Yeah.
We like Chewonki, we've cut that.
Yes.
That's an example of a
Okay.
co-curricular.
Yeah.
So, think of things that are outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
Right, because right now we have cut some of that already. We cut flow and the Chewonki. Yeah, certain
Yeah,
things
and I
in
just
sixth grade.
want to
right.
say I had a wonderful time on those trips.
Yeah.
Those definitely made me enjoy being a student, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. How about this, Anita or Patricia? You have anything right now? No. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Again, I think that we should fund these mental health services. And I guess my concern is that when I heard from the CPP kids, they said that their housing was not stable. And that was one of the things that brought a lot of stress to their lives. So we have to understand that this money is going to cost people more housing costs. So when we're raising these prices, we're raising the taxes that people have to spend on top of everything that's already increasing in their lives, their medical, their heat, their food and everything. So the money is coming from, the more money we spend here is going to cause, we have to be honest with ourselves, more stress and more anxiety in a lot of families. And so that's where the funding comes from, is the thing that we're trying to help these kids with, is that it increases when people's budgets get more desperate and more desperate. So we're not taking this money from someplace far away that doesn't have anything to do with our families' lives. This is part of it. So, and it's really wonderful and generous when people say, I don't mind, I want to pay more in taxes. But that's an I statement, and that doesn't represent everybody in our world. And we are very different kinds of people that make up our wonderful communities that help us pay for this school system. So I'm trying to think of not creating more unstable housing by increasing the cost of housing. I'm trying to think of not creating more financial anxiety in families by having bigger and bigger property tax bills to pay. And I'm trying to, I guess, say, all right, if a family had a big expense and had a lot of, let's say health insurance bills, then they would probably not do some other things. Maybe they couldn't go on a family vacation if they had a big medical expense in their lives. So I kind of look at this, the mental health cost is a big medical cost in our lives. We need to address it now. We will, but maybe some of the other fun stuff, or maybe some of the other elective stuff, maybe we could not do until we could find some better financing for these mental health costs. That's the balance I was looking at.
Right. Okay, thank you. I get it. Any other question? Yeah, Kurt.
I guess to add one more question to this, I'm wondering about the BMS librarian position.
Mm-hmm.
With option 5, is that something that could be put into that?
Yeah,
we
most
see what the
likely.
cost
I
increase
believe
would
that
be.
it could.
Do we think that would be a priority, or is that something the administrators would have to talk about?
I think that's a priority.
Just wanted to
Megan says
get
it's a
some on
priority.
record.
No, I think it is. I think we were talking, with, and I don't know that you could do all 3 with the 500. I mean, it'd be the tech. Because when you're talking about the 500,000, there was discussion around it, it's an extra social worker and or keeping that position librarian, and the third being the tech integrator. Those were ones that were still floating out there, that if you were adding that much more money, you could try to figure out a way to do that. So yes, it's definitely in the mix. And the board could decide what that meant too. I mean, this was just, we were trying to do these figures, some very specific, some, as an alternate, like that fifth one, just so people really understood, if you're going to spend this much more, this is how much more money is going to be in the increase to each town. This is what it looks like. That gets factored into the town with their city as well as county, which is all going up. The county's coming in high. Which goes back to your question of, well, if they're going up, why are we the ones that are supposed to not go up? Why do the kids need to suffer? Right. And so a lot of this has to do with contracts. It's where everybody is. Some of it has to do with debt service at the town levels that people have voted in. And so it's just a perfect storm of everything happening all at the same time, which doesn't always happen that way, but it is this time. And so that's what makes it difficult. And that's why we have to maybe pick certain positions that we want to keep versus saying, yeah, we want all of them. And that's why this discussion about prioritizing is so important. And so, if you're, so it would be helpful to also to figure out where people are with these particular positions or these particular options, where folks are kind of leaning. If you're leaning to a specific one, it would be good for us to know, just so we have, even if we have to work out some of the details, kind of what those numbers look like, which then helps Deb out in terms of, ultimately when we have to vote next week. But that's kind of where we are.
I guess.
Yeah. So you're saying are you saying that option, if the librarian is part of that option, that's the one you would go for?
I mean, just listening to board members and parents and teachers and staff at BMS, I feel like the more resources we can put there for that age group, the better. And if we want to have a professional, we want to have a certified nurse, an NP or whatever the certification is called at Phippsburg. We want to have one principal at every school. We want to have a nurse at every school. Do we want to have one librarian at every school? Ideally, is that on par together? But I guess I also wanted to say that we haven't really paid the COVID tax yet. And this is the year when everything runs out, and maybe the federal government is telling us that everyone's better now, but clearly that's not the case. So we can't rely on them. We have to rely on each other. And that's, some people would call that the beauty of a public system, is that everybody pays a little bit and it supports the community. So I would be in favor of option 5.5.
5.5.
Which doesn't exist yet.
It could, yeah. There's lots of options. Good to know. Anybody else on what are you leaning toward anything specific? I just want to have an idea of where you all stand before I open up to the public. Yeah, Megan?
I'm leaning towards option 5.
Okay.
Or 5.5.
Okay. Yeah, Anita.
Where I sit right now is with the alternative option,
Yeah, which
with
is fine.
prioritizing the BMS librarian as well within that.
Within that, prioritizing the librarian. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
make note of
Then
that. Yeah, I know. No option, no alternate option unless it's the librarian. I hear you, Megan. So right now in the budget, as the person's retiring, right? The current person's retiring. So in an effort to save funds, we were looking at what was it going to be, a Ed Tech 3 for the library instead of a full librarian. And so we were saying, well, that would be okay, but certain librarians and other people who you talk about the importance, in all seriousness, the importance of, if you already have a position that is of an actually certified librarian, and for the middle school kids to prepare them for high school, then the argument is you need someone who can really teach. It's a real knowledge manager at this point. You know, it's how you research, how you look up information, how you do that. There's a real fine art to that, and to have at the middle school level to continue, even if it's a new person, someone with that certification. Of quite a few people are saying you can't let that go, and that should be kept at that level. And so if you're going to keep that, so it's just a little more money. So it's figuring out if that's, because as Jennifer had brought up, you say, well, where can we cut? Well, we did cut certain co-curriculars. We did cut a lot of the non-labor budget. We did, we are cutting positions that I'd rather not cut. But when all that's said and done, we start restacking and saying, as Kurt eloquently said, the feds might think we're cured. We're not kidding. No, we still need the social work. As James said, that is ongoing. And it wasn't caused by COVID. It was exacerbated by COVID, but it certainly was always there. It's shown a light on it. We realize this is stuff we have to talk about and has been there a long time and we need to deal with. So you've got that aspect. Then you start to talk about what else do you feel is essential. And so we are trying to balance this. We've cut, I think, as much as we can cut. Jennifer thinks we could go back and cut more, and maybe other people think so too. But I think we seem to be in a place, and that's why I'm trying to get everybody's viewpoint on where you're at, is how much more you think you can put back in the budget. What are those essential items? It doesn't mean you can't. Next year, if things are better, things are different, you might be able to add back another position. You might, or maybe we'll have to cut something. I don't know, but this is just really difficult. We knew the cliff was coming. That's why we added a couple positions last year. We knew this was going to happen on some level. I don't know that, we couldn't have predicted just how bad inflation would be, so that, as Jennifer brought up before, even when you're starting with the budget, it's already 4%. Well, a lot of that's due to utilities, to maintenance, cost of repairing things, all of that, just, running vehicles, everything just is so much more than even last year. We wouldn't know, right? Yeah, I mean, all of these things are a lot more, and we've, even when it comes to the tech, we've asked them to hold off on certain software. We've asked them to, so we have reduced things, I think, and they've done a really good job of doing that. And it's not easy to do.
So the ed tech versus the librarian, I mean, is there a significant difference? Because of course,
is it 45,000?
Phippsburg doesn't have a librarian; they have an ed tech. So.
Right, a couple of the schools have an ed tech,
and
have had it for a while.
She does a fabulous job, and the kids
I think this is
get everything that she needs.
Well, I can let the librarian speak to it, but I think it has more to do with that. If you already had one, and the level of what you were trying to teach the kids, because there really is at that age to prepare them for high school. Am I doing this right? This is right. Yeah. That this is well.
And an
ed
tech wouldn't be.
The ed tech doesn't have. The ed tech could be
that,
fabulous, but they don't have the full education for what is often being called now a knowledge manager, individual who really, in this day and age with tech, can help the kids research, do their program, which more and more, if you talk to the librarians at Morse, and with the your seminar and your research and all the different classes we've been building up, anyone, you've taken these classes, right? So and I've heard from my kid, these work. These are the ones that when you then get to college, they're like, oh, I was prepared for this. And so these are all the building blocks for getting the kids, into that. She can get into Vassar for nothing, but I'm saying you take these classes, you build up, and again, so that's where you start talking. And this is what the discussion we're having tonight with everybody is: what's a luxury? What's a necessity? And that's what we're trying to weigh, is what we as a community feel is a necessity versus, it'd be nice to have if we could have it. That's why initially people said, in the same vein you're thinking, well, if we do an EdTech 3, we can make this work, we can do this happen, and I'll let I shouldn't be speaking for Megan. She's the librarian.
a couple things that I would point out is that when you have a professional librarian, much like when you have a teacher versus an ed techs are wonderful. We couldn't do what we do without them. But at the same time, like the expectations of what their job entails is a lot different than a professional certified teacher, certified librarian. And I'll also just point out a couple things. If you make that an ed tech, some certified librarian in this district is going to have to take on the role of being their supervisor. So you're asking somebody else to do more work than they're currently doing. The other part, oh gosh, it went away. Professional librarians can also, when I was going to speak to this, but I'll speak to it now, are often looked to and sought after for technology help. So it's kind of, you're having a librarian in there, you're also adding really another benefit for students and staff as a technology expert. There was something else I was going to say. We've had two since I've been back on the board. And would that be, putting that responsibility on an ed tech to go through the process that we have in our policies, and then also the knowledge, certified librarian, to be a certified librarian here in the state of Maine, you have to have a master's degree. So you've gone through the schooling, and sorry, I'm a horrible speaker, but I'll stop there. So.
You're great. You're a very good speaker. Just to clarify, whenever we're speaking about cost, and if someone says it's 45,000, what everyone needs to be aware of, all the numbers we're talking about, it's salary and benefits. So when some people look at it and go, hey, I'm not making that, it's like, well, yeah, because you have to add an extra third or more sometimes to place all the retirement benefits, all that into it. So those are the numbers we're working with, just so people are clear. Yeah, Jennifer.
I had expressed this before, is that in the CPP program, we're adding a teacher, but in the library, we're supposedly cutting a position back from being a teacher. So if we get to this point, I guess my question would be, would it be a big cost difference if we funded the librarian as a teacher and then changed the teacher cost in the CPP program to an Ed Tech 3? Like if we flipped those costs, could we do that in terms of, then we would continue that teaching position, and then that the CPP program, which is a new program, instead of having an Ed Tech 3 and a teacher, it would have two Ed Tech 3s.
We'd have two Ed Tech, right? Because right now it's a teacher and an Ed Tech 3. I don't think that would work for the
It
program.
wouldn't work because they produce all their own curriculum and lessons. And so with an Ed Tech 3, and it's totally singular and solo. So there's no one who would be part of that department to be able to oversee if it's two Ed Techs. Versus the reason why we have it in the librarian is just like Megan said, in the library, we do have a certified librarian who would, she's right, we would have to ask somebody to help out and oversee that. And also our librarians who are Ed Tech 3s don't do the ordering and all of those sorts of things. So we have to have a librarian do all of that.
So the new program, the CPP program, takes priority over the librarian position, I guess. If we had to look at, we reduced the librarian position in order to afford the CPP programming, or in part of, with the cuts, and we're adding back in money for that. So I guess we're exchanging priorities in a way, just the way I look at it.
Well, all of it's exchanging prayer. All of it is saying, this is everything. We're losing some of it because of COVID funding. Certain things we've seen as successes when we had the COVID funding. And so folks are now saying we need to keep it. And so, it is exchange of priorities. I know it's adding priorities, but yeah, there's all different ways to look at it. And that's why, that's why we have all the different options. That's why have looked at it and made all the cuts where we could. And then, as people said, you've got to add stuff back in, and we're trying to listen to the community and listen to what we think is best for the students and staff, then we, what's best for our kids, then we have added stuff back in. So that's why we have these options. But, and that's why then as you say, okay, option 4, and then people say, well, if I want to add the librarian or another social worker or possibly the tech integrator, then how do I, is that an option 5 or an option 5.5? Then you're starting in with the 500,000-ish, and some of this is still up in the air because, as Patricia asked, we still are in negotiations with some contracts and we have to do all the numbers, but I think we're still in the general ballpark. Anybody else on maybe where they're sitting with this? It sounds like so far people are, I know, Jen, you're in a place where it's just you want very little increase without any kind of decrease, and trying to find more decrease to do that. It sounds like from at least Kurt and Megan and Jamie, you're hovering between 4 and 5, depending on what that looks like. Maybe 5, and I think Anita, you're thinking that too, right? Like the alternate, and you are too? Okay.
Lou?
And yes.
Oh, Deb?
That leaves me. Yeah, no, I've been in the kind of 4 to 5 camp myself. I think 5. I think when all is said and done, and when it comes down to it, and how much backing some of this stuff has, we would probably be in the alternate option or option 5 range. Because if you can bring these in, these are all places that people have spoken to, have talked about. We do have a process where people can show up and raise different cost centers. Of course, it's up to the board to decide where the money goes, but if they come in for a specific reason and that last meeting and push it, things could go up anyway. But I'm also in that kind of range.
Lou?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
You mentioned that we cut all we could cut. And just to be clear, we cut things before we were going to add back in all these. We cut a budget. The cuts were made in the budget to keep it at 4%. Then people wanted to add more back in. And so we've never had proposal cuts to say, if we go with any of these options, how could we make alternate savings for that? I haven't, unless I've missed something, I haven't seen that.
No.
And we also, in the original cuts, didn't have any cut to athletics, to be clear. We had academic cuts, we had other cuts, but we didn't have specific cuts to any athletic programming. And that the programming that we would, and I keep saying exchanging, maybe not cut, like if we want to add these COVID funded programs in, then we could then be presented with a number of proposals where we could take the programming that we have right now, and maybe that's not staffing program, which I don't really want to cut any staffing positions at all, but we would take the cost of any other cost, no matter how minuscule they are. Because I know, like, why cut something if it's only going to save us $60,000? It's $60,000. That's a lot of money that if you add a bunch of $60,000 up, you're going to get towards the savings of offsetting one of these new positions that we want to add in. So, I would love to see if there's any room in there at all. And I would like to see the original budget that was proposed, and then to only position that we would add back in would be funding the nursing position in Phippsburg. So instead of all these COVID positions that we knew we're not going to be able to fund necessarily, which nobody brought in any kind of fundraising money to pay for them. We knew the funding was going away. We didn't find any other funding. And I guess I would say the last thing not the last thing, but do you know that MaineCare and private insurance covers mental health and physical health coverages? So these coverages are paid. So we're subsidizing for-profit insurance companies because instead of, I wish we could go and the services we provide for kids to get reimbursed by anybody that has private care or anybody that has MaineCare.
Well, we can do MaineCare.
Well, we're not there yet. And if we could, I would say,
that's what we're working on.
do all
is doing
right,
the MaineCare.
but not in this budget.
For some reason,
Not yet, not in this budget.
is
Right?
it in this budget?
Yeah, we're currently doing some transportation right now to privates, and then we also have to wait for the legislation to see if we can do it for other services as well.
Right, so we can't pay for a social worker. We can't get reimbursed by either private insurance or main care to help pay for any of the social work positions, is my understanding, in this budget. Is that correct?
Correct, but neither can any other school district. right
Right,
now,
so I'm just saying
yeah.
that instead of the big corporations that are making millions of dollars, we're doing this out of our taxpayers instead of people who have insurance, who have coverage for services. I just don't understand why those corporations aren't paying.
Well, no, and it
I
should.
think it should
and
deliver
that's-
in the schools.
But that's why we're waiting at the state, because the state
Right.
has to step up and the state has to allow us to do that. And if the state can allow us to do that, that will make a big difference. But in the meantime, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place because we can't just say no to the kids. I mean, we can, but I don't want to. We have to provide the services, and I understand what you're saying to cut. I don't know, in all practicality, hearing from the rest of the board right now, even if we came up with a budget that was what you're saying, I don't know that anyone would go for it in cutting more things. Everyone here seems, not everyone, most everyone seems to be in favor of adding these positions back in. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
I'm only one voice from Woolwich. That's it. There's only
No.
Woolwich only has one voice here.
But no,
So-
that's-
And it's going to have the biggest increase, and I'm just one voice.
Well, it is tough. I'm not saying it's not, but Aroustic has a higher percentage because they have a lot more kids coming in and they're very small. Okay, so let me do this. So I think
Lou, can I just
yeah, go ahead.
directly address that? Jennifer, the reason, I guess, I know this is totally public, but the reason why I am in favor of a larger increase, because if I look at the last 3 years, the percentage of taxes going towards the RSU 1 in Bath, it's 0.79%, it's 2.76%, it's 1.04%. In Woolwich, it's 1.7%, 1.15%, 0.74%. So, I mean, if you take it in that context, I don't feel uncomfortable about it in any way at all.
And the city of Bath gets $2,333,000 in revenue sharing last year back from the state, which helps them pay for this budget. So even though those percentages are different, how much individual taxpayers end up funding out of that in a town like Woolwich, which gets $400,000 or a little over $400,000, is a big difference in the impact. And there's fewer people, and so the impact, even though that's why percentage numbers are, how much of a percentage increase it is. You have to look at the end result to what the results of how people are being able to pay their taxes, and then you'd have to look at the comparison of the area median income between the two areas. I mean, it goes
You can
down
look
to
at a lot of
so-
things. The mill
Right.
rate is much higher in Bath than it is in Woolwich. I mean, we can throw out numbers all we want, but this is like,
But this
is
is
literally
number,
what
it's money.
happened.
It's actually, this is what we're talking about, is money and numbers. And so you have to talk about the actual dollars and impacts that it is to families and how that is. It's very different. They're two very different municipalities. They're
Well,
drastically different.
they are, but that's why the formula's set up the way it is. It was supposedly set up so that this would work. And
But we're talking about what we pay over the formula.
I know.
So it's the formula is doing the required, what we need to do. And so the additional difference is the additional above that we vote on. And it's a different impact to different communities, and
right,
just,
it is. Go ahead, Jane.
So could I just ask, could we see the budget with option, I don't know which the CPP program,
That's,
2 elementary social
mean
workers?
option 4?
I think option 5.
Well, this is option 4. That's what this is.
Okay.
If you add in the librarian or social worker, that's here, possible
Okay.
tech integrator, like that's where, so it's an extra 100,000 over the option 4.
Okay.
And then you see these numbers.
And
And
we
that's what we have. Now, we haven't done more than that. We could look at numbers. We could look at numbers that are less, numbers that are more, but that gives you the idea of where that would be if you were
Okay.
adding more in.
And we're not making a motion tonight.
No.
Okay.
No, we're not voting tonight. Yeah, Jen.
So if the, excuse me, I'm sorry, if the negotiation price comes in higher, do we add that higher cost on top of all of this higher cost? Or do we say, if that negotiation comes in and it's going to be a higher cost, do we decrease some of these all optional things that we're doing?
Well, that's where it gets complicated, doesn't it? Because if we're not done with negotiations before, I mean, we have to vote. Something has to be ready. And then, yes, what would happen is if we voted on it and then it ended up coming in higher, then we would have to add it, I guess, right? Technically. Yeah, go ahead if you want to address
No,
it.
it's just, I mean, it's a moving target and just don't know when the process is going to end and where it'll end at. So.
Jamie, I just want to go back to what you were asking before. If you take option 4 and then add back in the library and having a second social worker at the elementary, it puts you guys at 482, which is 12,000 less than what option 5 is for.
It wouldn't include the tech integrator at that
And what
point.
is the tech integrator?
How much?
Approximately. So about 5.5, 550.
It's Kurt's 5.5.
5.5.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, because I know we don't want to be here all night, I'd like to open, and if the board's okay, I want to open it up if folks in the crowd there who have been patiently listening would like to have any questions or want to comment on any of the specific options. Again, we're pretty familiar with all of the positions and all of that, but would like, if anyone wants to address the board, you can come on up and just please keep it brief. Just tell us who you are, where you live, or you can all be shy. That's fine.
Hi, I'm Leanne Fisher. I live in Woolwich Central School. I'm a taxpayer. I teach at Woolwich. I've been there for 17 years. My kids went to Woolwich. Jen was a math teacher for my daughter, Allison. I would like you to think of being very specific in the terms you use and don't throw out terms like taxes will go up thousands of dollars, because they won't. For individual families, that's something you just said earlier. So you got to be careful about that, because it doesn't go up exponentially in the same manner you're talking about. I get what you're saying about we get money back from the state and that comes from our tax base. Yeah, that's a true statement. But you have to be careful about that, and be careful about saying things like, we're going to cut programming without saying what specific things you're talking about. Because if you're talking about sports, I have a kid who would have committed suicide in 7th grade if it wasn't for her activity and energy and the things she got into. We saw doctors, and you knew her very well. We had the worst 7th grade year ever. And to this day, when she's running in a marathon on Sunday, to this day, my 31-year-old uses techniques and things she learned from getting help from people through school to get through that time frame. So you can't shortchange kids that way. And I know you can't tell us how to do a budget. I've been doing a budget my whole life. My mother did a budget. My grandmother did a budget. Everybody back here, you guys got a budget? Okay. So it's very difficult to sit there and have you say, you have to make choices. We do. And we're making a choice to reach into our pockets and pay for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Mandy Reynolds, and I'm one of the owners of Union & Co. Business Downtown. I am here in support of either option 4 or option 5. My partner, Sean Ireland, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, redeveloped the building at 31 Center Street over the last couple of years. And I'm here really to support Credit Pathways program. We were introduced to CPP by Abby and Georgie, who reached out about Sean's work downtown in small scale redevelopment in conjunction with their curriculum, including investigating local government, community development, and how to get involved in local decision making. Something, by the way, I didn't learn until well after my own college experience. We invited CPP to tour the grant building and gave a brief presentation to students about what it means to be a developer with a focus on community, but also the finances and mechanics of the work. And during the time we spent with these students, they were incredibly engaged. Had clearly prepared for this interaction, and they seemed interested and knowledgeable about the subject, which was very impressive. A couple of people who actually work in our space on a daily basis asked if it was a college student group visiting because they were so impressed and so many intelligent questions, and the students seemed so interested. It's very clear to me that the CPP curriculum and faculty are preparing this group of young adults for the world in the way that is important and relevant and so needed. They're really teaching kids how to be adults. And so I urge you to fund the Credit Pathways program. They do good and important work, and that deserves to be recognized and replicated in years to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
Hi, good evening. My name is Grammy Pammy, and I am the proud graduate of Morse High School class of 1966. I have 11 grandchildren. They all went to school in the Bath school systems. 9 of them graduated from Morse. 2 of them would have graduated from Morse if we did indeed have a CPP program when they went to school. I am speaking on behalf of the program. I have a grandson who is a junior here at Morse, and I have to say it saved his life. He is so focused on education now, which he wasn't before he joined the CPP program last year. He wasn't. And as all of these kids, they don't all want to be doctors, lawyers, or Indian chiefs. They just don't. So you have to find a program that makes them want to get up, go to school, and stay on their educational path. And the CPP program is that program for a lot of kids. Now, I look at all of you, and I know you are on the school board, not for the glory, not for the money, but I know you are here to help the children who are going to school in RSU 1. I know you care. And I consider you parents of all the children that go to school in the RSU 1 program. I also look at you like this is a big house, and you are the parents of this house with these kids who go to school in the Bath programs. You are the parents. And I also know running a household, sometimes something comes up and you have to steal from Paul to pay Peter. You just have to do that. So your job is to find that money, to fund programs like CPP, so that other kids who are borderline, who don't want to be a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, those kids that are borderline will stay in school, will look forward to getting up, to coming to school. And my grandson who joined the CPP program last year, now he's a high honor student. I mean, this program I can't say enough about for these kids. And I know that you know it, and I know you hear testimonies all the time. So your job is to find money somewhere. It's not my job, it's your job. So I'm about to leave here and go to one of my grandson's baseball game. He's a 6th grader at BMF, and I make homemade whoopie pies to give to them after the game, win or lose, because it's my job as a grandmother. And your job on this council is to find the money to fund programs like the CPP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cut off the applause. Hi, my name is Steve August. I'm a community member of the Finance Committee, and I know most of you because I previously served on the board. I'd like to advocate for option 5. I have a particular attachment to the tech integrator role position. It's one that we advocated for when I was on the board. I think the value that that position has added to our academic programs is just irreplaceable, and it'd be too bad to lose it. Just a couple of other comments. Jamie's comments are, again, a very common refrain that we heard. Our expectations of schools has changed dramatically over time, even over the very short time that I've been here in Bath, and it costs money. The community supports aren't available as they used to be, and that responsibility falls to the schools. And I think I'm very proud of the way the RSU has stepped up and accepted those responsibilities. It costs money, but I don't think anyone out there in the larger population thinks that the RSU has been anything but responsible over the way it's treated its budget. I think you look for cuts where they are. I think when you add positions back, you do it responsibly with the kids in mind and with the community in mind. And I think that's great. So it's a tough budget. It's a tough budget for municipalities. I'm a county commissioner at this point. It's a tough budget for the county. But I think all of us just need to take a deep breath and realize that we've got to come up with the financing to continue these programs. Just one other comment. You know, Lou, you mentioned that, well, we can always come back next year or a year, you know, a couple years out. But every year has its own priorities and presents its own challenges. And my feeling is if you miss the I shouldn't say miss the opportunity, but the opportunities that you don't take today, I'm not sure you're going to be able to revisit next year or 2 years out. So good luck. It's tough. I admire the job that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And Steve, don't worry. We'll blame the county as much as we can. Thanks for coming. Go ahead.
I'm Lachlan Aldridge, a junior at Morse High and the tech intern, and I'm here to speak on the technology intern position under option 5 or 5.5. Because students aren't the only ones who learn in this district. The teachers at every one of these schools is learning new ways of teaching to better educate students, and now more than ever, this includes technology. Our technology integrator helps out teachers by giving them breathing room they need by helping out with tasks, educating teachers on programs, devices, or teaching a class here or there for our teachers who are just as prone to struggle. Our technology integrator is always hard at work for our staff and students in our district. If you cut this position, what do you show your teachers? It shows that the board is unwilling to support teachers and thus students. Cutting this position is inherently against education. If this position is only on the chopping block for monetary reasons, there are better options for saving money. We could lower the thermostat to save money on heating. We could move to more digital assignments. Still, there are teachers in this district who are just waiting out the clock and would jump at the chance for an early retirement. You owe it to your staff and students to do more than what is legally required as the bare minimum. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi. I just wanted to preface this by saying I've talked to a couple dozen students about this, and what I'm about to say is a compilation of how they feel and how I feel, because right now I think that student voices are not being represented as much as they should. So I just ask for a couple minutes of your time.
Just give us your name again.
My name is Jay Marlowe.
And you are in what grade?
I'm an 11th grader here at Morse.
Thank you.
At the last board meeting, I spoke in support of the RSU1 Technology Department. Unfortunately, I feel that we have not yet fully voiced our concerns to the board and to the people of the RSU1 community. Let me begin by saying I'm an AP and honors student. I've received straight A's my entire high school experience. I understand that I am unfortunately the type of student that our school district often values and recognizes the most. And despite what many may think, it is not solely my ability that has gotten me here. It is also privilege. Privilege that many students in our CPP program do not have. And so I'm using this privilege to speak in front of you tonight and to remind you that as the school board, you do not get to pick and choose favorites. You do not get to decide which students you value more than others. The message that you are sending all of these kids, plain and simple, is that they are not worth your time, money, or effort. This is very painful. If you are not willing to do anything and everything it takes for every student in our district, then I do not know why you took up these positions. If it takes every ounce of my being, I will not let you leave these kids behind. You have a duty to the students of RC1, and that means every student. That means every student is valuable and every student is deserving of the tools they require to complete their education. You've provided for my needs, so why not theirs? Every position and program you have put forth onto the chopping block has the potential to worsen our education. What do you expect 100 children in Pittsburgh to do 4 days a week without a school nurse? Who do they go to when they are hurt, when they are sick? How do you explain to them that when they are not feeling well, the one person trained to help them will not be there? Is this the kind of school that you would send your own children to? What about a school without adequate guidance, support, and social workers? Did you know that the average high school student has the same anxiety levels as those found in 1950s asylum patients? I'll repeat that again for you. Every day, we experience the same levels of anxiety as that of society's most tormented in the 1950s. And yet you continue to cut our social workers, to fund our guidance counselors, and put the workload onto the few remaining. How can we hope to find help when those employed to support us cannot even help themselves? Who am I supposed to go to when every guidance counselor's caseload just doubled? Beyond this, there are other changes you propose that can hurt us. I'm of the opinion that the firing of Miss Donna Williams and Mr. Matthew D'Angelo is a backstabbing. Next year, we are slated to have a study hall with 93 students. How do you expect a teacher to handle that? To take time out of their already cramped day to do something that they are not trained to do? If you can find a teacher that has the ability to monitor the 93-person study hall, teach 5 classes, plan and prep for all their classes, grade assignments, and then go home and maintain a sustainable work-life balance, then congratulations. The teacher you have found is 1 in a million and probably a robot. It's impossible to hold every teacher here to the same standard. Why fire the person most prepared for the job of study hall monitor and whose work directly supports teachers and staff? And when our math classes increase in size because you laid off the man whose patience and kindness are the key to many students' success, what will you do about the statistical likelihood that math grades will drop? Will you add 5 points to all of our final math grades to make up for the deteriorating quality of our education? What will you do to hold together the RSU1 technology department that is being sabotaged by the removal of a crucial position of technology integrator? When our teachers and students are unable to use the very technology that our education is dependent on, will you come down to our schools and teach us how to operate Brightspace? Will you walk us through how to access the many nuances of the Promethean system? Every decision I've seen made through this budget sends a clear message. To me, to other students, teachers, parents, community members. You are telling us that you prioritize money over student happiness, well-being, and safety. This is not the RSU1 that I know. Finally, for just a moment, I have something to ask of you. Just for 1 minute, please do not see me as a 17-year-old. For 1 minute, let us not be student and board or adult and child. 1 minute, for 1 minute, can we just be human beings? Now, from one human being to another, I need you to know that if I seem upset, it is because I am. I am angry. I am outraged. This is my future that is being affected. But more than that, I'm upset for every other kid in this school and across the district who have to deal with the consequences of this budget for many, many years to come. Me, I am a rising senior. I have 1 year left here, but I have a little brother in this school. He will spend the next 3 years, 3 of the most formative years of his teenage life, dealing with burnt out social workers or teachers who cannot operate Google Classroom. When I get up here to talk, please know that I'm not just fighting for myself, I'm fighting for him and every other kid in the system like him. I need my brother to know that his older sibling will be there to stand up for him. So please know that there's not a student in this district I would not go to bat for. Please do not let him down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my
Hi.
name's Katrina. I have two young kids at the Phippsburg Elementary School. And I want to take just a couple minutes to just explain to you guys how absolutely important it is that we maintain a nurse at the school 100% of the time. I have a young child, my oldest, who is on ADHD medication. It's not up to the secretary or the teacher to make sure she gets her medication every single day at a very specific time. It's not fair to put that weight on somebody else's shoulders when they already have 1,000 other things they're doing. Not having a school nurse and not having that person there every single day is detrimental. It's going to cause so many issues for our kids. Just last week, my son had a tick bite that was looking yucky when he woke up in the morning. And I sent an email and just said, hey, Brandy, could you just take a look at this tick bite, make sure it looks okay for you, it's not getting worse. 20 minutes later, I had an email back, looks great, Katrina, no worries, just keep an eye on it, tonight. Just having that security as a parent, sending my kid to school and knowing that somebody is there that is licensed or has the knowledge to hand out these medications or to look at a tick bite and just say, hey, that really doesn't look right. It's important. And not only just that, but she's somebody that these kids can lean on. I graduated the class of 2013, and those of you that were not around, we lost a young kid in my class to suicide. Now, that is probably one of the hardest things I have ever gone through. We need these support people now more than ever. I heard some talk about, the mental health, because of COVID. Well, this was an issue before COVID even came around. We have been struggling for these poor kids. And I heard some talk about, main care and private health insurance, covering these costs. It would be great if we could make that happen. Awesome. But at the end of the day, whether it happens or not, we need our school nurses. We need these counselors. We need these people. These children, most of the time, they don't have these conversations with their parents. These outside people are the people that they're looking to have these conversations that are hard to have with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. We, at the end of the day, we cannot take this away. We have to make sure that we have all this funding. We really need to keep our nurse. And I really think that option 5 is looking like, the best option at this point. That's all that I have for you guys.
Great, thank you.
Hello, I'm Faith Smith. I was a student at BMS, and I never got the chance to go to Morse because I had different outcomes, unfortunately. But I just wanted to say that even coming from BMS back, I want to say, 6 years ago now, it hasn't changed very much, unfortunately. I have talked to a lot of the students that are 6 years below me, and they still are feeling the same way that I am. I noticed that you guys had brought up a lot of the mental health, and unfortunately, she had brought up one of my older sisters, Jessica Holman, who did kill herself in 2013. I unfortunately, me being one of those people as well, I still every single day deal with the suicidal effects, per se, of what school had done to me. A lot of children these days don't have parents due to drugs, unfortunately, or some of them, including themselves, the students, are on drugs, whether it be for their mental or outside of school. So unfortunately, and a lot of you guys don't take that into consideration. When I was back in 6th grade, I remember I was coming into school drunk. I was coming into school on drugs because of my parents, and the school held that over my head, and I was getting expelled. I was getting suspended. And that was not me. I was being drugged by my parents. So unfortunately, the school system, they don't take a lot of look into what happens inside other people's homes per se, especially when the kids are bringing it to school. This can be their safe zone. And like they said with the school nurse, I remember being a little girl in Fisher Mitchell School in Dyke Knoll, and I can remember always running to the school nurse if my belly hurt. So it's a given thing that you need to have here. And I honestly think that you guys need, as an adult, need to look at the responsibilities of having children, especially if you do have your own children. You need to care. Honestly care. I remember going to church with your son. Yeah, I remember going to church with your son, and unfortunately, the way that he turned out as opposed to me, and I mean even 30 other children in my grade, one of them just got put in jail 2 nights ago on the phone with me. So unfortunately, I have a really bad feeling about the way that the school districts are going downhill, unfortunately, and that's taking a really big toll on our children, including me, unfortunately. I mean, still to this day, I still struggle with my own problems. So and that was a lot to do with school. So I just want you all to keep that in mind, please.
Yep, thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Yep.
My name is Jericho Adler. I work at Bath Tech currently, and I'm so happy to be here. I grew up in Woolwich. I went to Woolwich Central School, and I graduated Morse in 2014. To piggyback on this, between 8th grade and the year I graduated, I lost 3 classmates to suicide, and a good friend of mine attempted it very seriously when I was in school. And when I was a sophomore in college, within the first week of June, I had to bury a good friend of mine for the same reason, as well as my older brother. And I had a student ask me the other day, and I say the other day, it was a couple months ago, about mental health and what it was like when I was in school. And it really made me think that I don't even know if we had a social worker when I was a student here. I don't know. I don't know if I had one when I was in middle school, elementary school, high school. And I connected the dots between maybe, and I don't know if this is causation or correlation, but maybe these social workers that I see walking the halls, talking with students, laughing with students, that my students talk to me about how awesome this person is and how funny they are. Maybe that has something to do with the dramatic decrease in student suicides. Because as a student, I saw a lot more suicides than I have as a teacher. I can't think of one. And once again, I can name just 5 that I had within 6 years as a 14 to 20-year-old. So I just think gutting our mental health programs is a step backwards when we've made so much progress. I don't think we can assign a monetary value on a student's life. I know as a taxpayer, I could care less if my taxes go up if it means potentially keeping one of these amazing kids alive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary McCauley. I spoke a couple sessions ago. I unfortunately couldn't make it last time. I had COVID. I was homesick, and I think that was the time I should have been addressing what I wanted to talk about tonight. I am retiring this year, and in one of my positions that I hold, it says as an outdoor educator, that's being cut. And I really felt the need to talk about this, to go out with, I know there's probably not a shot to get back in the budget, at least this year, but maybe in the future. But so I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, if you bear with me. I wanted to talk about this position being out of the budget for both Phippsburg and Woolwich. Here's a little origin of the program. Phippsburg has had an outdoor education program for 6 years now. It has taken an enormous amount of work to build and incorporate the many community volunteers that help educate our students by sharing their expertise. The outdoor classroom began many years ago with Lynn Kay, a member of the Phippsburg Land Trust, was involved in teaching our 3rd graders all about trees and the students' natural surroundings in their community. We wanted this to continue with all grade levels. So we began working with the Land Trust to maintain the outdoor classroom and offer it to all students, not just the third grade. And when I say we, all the teachers at Phippsburg, Principal Sandra, we really worked hard with this, a lot of volunteers. We wanted to make use of the wonderful 20 acres of town land out back and trails. We're very fortunate to have the trails behind our school. So we went to work, navigating through many resources to develop a science curriculum with a goal in mind for students to understand how real-life science impacts their immediate ecosystem and its impact on the forest and watershed. The idea of using nature as a window into the environment reinforced our goal. We recognize that the town of Phippsburg offered so much to our students. We worked to integrate the RSU1 NGSS science lessons using the outdoor classroom. We involved the coordinator of Project Learning Tree, and I became certified to teach that curriculum. Phippsburg Land Trust wanted to see the outdoor education program succeed. So when we couldn't get grant money, which we did a lot of research on, they stepped forward and funded my 1 day a week position for 1 year. This was a trial period in which we would base the results on my position being put in the budget for the following year. The success of our outdoor education program that year was very favorable, so the position was put into the budget in 2018. Now, after 6 years, the outdoor education teaching position has been cut. And with my opinion, little regard for the impact on the Phippsburg community. The position was not funded by COVID money. And yes, I know the pavilion that we were so fortunate to build out back as part of the classroom was. I'm assuming that because I'm retiring after leading the program for 6 years, it was an easy choice. I want to make clear that this position required very little budget money, except for the teacher salary. All activities were done with a hands-on approach, utilizing numerous community members who volunteered their time and experience to better educate our students. During the past 6 years, we have helped students gain an awareness and appreciation of their natural surroundings and recognize their place in it. We have seen what being outside did for many students, improved focus, and how much it engaged them, decreasing many of their behavior problems. Students were taught what it meant to be a citizen scientist and greatly enjoyed and appreciated working with our community scientists. Here are some examples of what the many volunteers in our community supported and participated in teaching our students over the last 6 years. Garlic planting with the pre-K, tapping trees for sap and learning how to make maple syrup. And I have to add, we had a big field trip to my house last year to show that. Wigwam construction when we did the Wabanaki unit. We had foresters, local foresters come in, wildlife biologists, marine biologists, learned about plant ID, tree identification, talked about erosion, took advantage of the wonderful vernal pools out back of our school. And for the second year now, we've been participating in the Maine Native Wild Seed Project, making and recording observations of different habitats of different animals out back, and planting and harvesting vegetables in our school garden. The list could go on and on. Some other accomplishments were the building of our pavilion that I mentioned earlier, creation of a weather station, and most recently an orienteering course. I feel very strongly that the outdoor educator position should remain in the budget. I know I might be a little too late in voicing this for all the options. I know I'm not in one of these options. I appreciate the opportunity tonight to let everyone know how much work and effort has gone into building this program and how much support we have had from the Phippsburg community. My hope is that there may still be a chance in the future to reinstate this 1 day a week position at Phippsburg, and if possible, Woolwich, because I did it at both schools. And I totally support, thank you for listening to me, and I totally support the option 5 too.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Hi there. My name is Alex Pernell. I'm a social worker at Morse. Bath taxpayer. And, you know, I don't have this huge speech prepared or anything like that, so it's not going to be anything like super special. But something that you said, Miss Rich Smith, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Main care is available, and there is outside therapy that accepts main care. But oftentimes when I work with these students who are really in desperate need of health care, or not health care, sorry, mental health support, they struggle to get access to that main health social work. There are oftentimes wait lists that are months long for certain programs that have social workers in through a revolving door. There are individuals in that referral process for one clinician who then is out of that program, and they kind of start that process all over again. I think that at school, they have access to that any day that they need it. You know, I think for a lot of the students who struggle with low income and poverty and these sorts of things, I think a lot about transportation. How are they going to get to a location in Brunswick or a location in Freeport if they can barely get to school half the time? That's something else that I've considered greatly. And having a social worker at school, I think, is extremely important. I think that CPP is extremely important. I am in great favor of option 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Hello,
Hey.
I'm Taylor Tate, and I am a sophomore at Morse High School. I'm going to keep this short. I just wanted to say, I find it cruel to promise the teachers security in their job and promise security to the students in the CPP program and then threaten to strip it away. It doesn't set a very good precedent for students to be shown. It doesn't set a very good precedent for students to be shown to break promises by the adults we are supposed to look up to and respect. These teachers were given these jobs, and the program was put in place because it's needed. It's not right to take either away. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, we got one more. Ms. Emerson.
Sorry, I'll try to keep this
No,
short
that's
too.
okay.
My name is Carrie Emerson. I'm a resident of Woolwich, and I teach social studies here at Morse High School. And I too would like to advocate for option number 5. And in particular, I wholeheartedly support everything that's been said before. I would also like to advocate for a full-time, fully certified librarian at the middle school. Part of the reason that I teach is because I think education is the foundation of our democracy, and having an educated citizenry is how our democracy functions. And one of the most important jobs of a librarian is not only to teach us how to research, but to teach us how to critically think about the information that we're being given on a daily basis. And I think that that is becoming more and more difficult every day with the deluge of information that's coming towards us. And that the librarian, one of their main jobs is to help all of our students to navigate that so that they can be the informed citizens we want them to be in order to have a functioning democracy. So I'd like us to keep that in mind when we make those decisions, please.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, thank you all for let out. I think we're going to end this part of the agenda. I'll let you all speak. I'm just saying from the public. Thank you all. We're gonna, if there's just any comments from the board based on that, and then we're gonna continue on with the agenda. Also, we are, after make the comment, we're just gonna vote to possibly go later. Though we may get into executive session before that. So go ahead, Jen, if you had a comment.
Thanks, Lou. I don't doubt that there is anybody who thinks that we don't need mental health services in our schools, and our schools are the very best place to deliver those services. I don't think that there's any question when we're looking at this budget that there is a need or not. We know the need is there. We think the best place to deliver it is there. But the question is how do we pay for the people who delivering the services? That's all what we're thinking of right now. And we really wish everybody or somebody who came up and said, we need this, could say, here's how I think we could pay for it. Or maybe we could do this versus that or something. I mean, someone's mentioned turning the heat down, and that is a possibility to a certain degree. But the reality is, how do we pay for it? And it has to be paid for. It can't just be wished for. It has to be, we have to find the money, and the money has to come from someplace. And so it's no one saying that it's not a priority and that it's not necessary for kids. We all agree with that. But so the question is something else less of a priority when this becomes more of a priority? And nobody seems to stand up and say, well, I guess we could do with a little bit less of this, or maybe we should try to put this off for a little while. It's not other, it's more. And then you just have to understand that where this money gets paid for, where it comes from. And so if you have a question about how this would impact your taxes and you live in Woolwich, I will be more than happy to sit down and talk with you and walk you through how that mill rate's going to change. There are a lot of costs that we're looking at that we can't control. We can't control how much the county commission charges our town. We can't control how much insurance goes up or fuel goes up or any of the things like that we have to do. We have to pay for those things no matter what. So it's not like we're just deciding that we don't want these services, or anybody who doesn't want to fund them. We want to fund them all, but we do have to pay for them. So the question is, how do we pay for them? And nobody stands up to say, I'm willing to go with less of X, Y, and Z because that's how important I think this mental health services are. And also, if you're somebody who says, I don't mind paying more in taxes, I think that's wonderful and generous. And so I challenge anybody who says, I don't mind for paying more in taxes, to make a contribution to our nonprofit foundation that we have at the school to help pay for these mental health services. You can make any donation you want. You can do that yourself. And I would greatly appreciate that comes from every individual who has that generosity, who their families can afford to pay more in taxes, and they don't have to make choices between other survival things for themselves. So it's not just a question of value. It's just simply, how can we pay for these services is the question I think most of us are struggling with. Thank you, though.
Thanks. Yeah. And and I think there may be differing opinion, but I think to a great extent we have. I mean, we just heard from the outdoor classroom that I'd not like to cut, but we're cutting other positions I'd not like to cut, but we're trying to save essential ones. And, hopefully we can put other stuff back in and other opportunities. But all right, let's move on to, we just have a couple more items and then we'll move into executive session. So we're at the overnight field trip requests, 10.2. And I think we can take this all together, right?
Yeah, I
Or do you
mean,
wanna
we can
just
take
go
them all
over them?
together. I mean, it's Skills USA, which, we have every year. We're fortunate to have several students go into nationals in Atlanta, Georgia. All-State Music Festival, we have one student going to Orono, but it is an overnight. And then we have the Waypoint program, senior trip to Acadia. And then the last one is kind of exciting one, which is new, but we had French students here that won a contest that they submitted, and they have an all-expense paid trip to France the first week in June. So the teacher
That's amazing.
and the 3 students
That's amazing.
get to go to France. So it's a great opportunity that we just found out about last week. So those are the 4 overnight or out of state or out of country in
Yeah.
this case trips.
That's a serious overnight. Okay. So any questions on any of those? Yeah.
I was thinking about this request form, and I was wondering, is there any place on it that we could change that would be able to let us know what the cost, if there is any budget cost to any of these trips? I know there's a place to say if you need a bus or not, but I guess my question would be to all the trips is there a budget cost? Is there any cost that comes out of our school budget for these? And also specifically for the new trip to France, which is just amazing, is there any cost to the school budget, or do we just have to approve it because we're allowing the students to be absent for that time, or using staff hours to pay for that?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. You can see funding source, lower left-hand column. So if you look at Skills USA,
Oh,
it's
okay. Oh, sorry.
it's Perkins donations and student accounts. I mean, if we need to in the future, if all the board would like to see that, then we could give you an exact figure. On the one that goes to Orono, there is no cost except probably reimbursing the staff person for their personal vehicle for gas to go up there. The next one in Acadia, that is all through MYC, so it's not the school district. And then the last one is, I believe, Eric, unless there's some hidden cost, but I think it's all expense paid, maybe with the exception of transportation to the airport, maybe, but I don't know that. No? Yeah. So that was it's a 7-day trip, and it's financed by the, I think it's the Lounsbury Foundation, so.
Do you have to pay a substitute when the teacher goes?
Yeah, that would be,
Yeah,
I mean,
that would
in
be
that
the
case,
cost.
we would, yeah.
Okay, so maybe if there were any sub costs, that would be a good thing to know about on the, because that is a cost on the form. Because again, that just kind of goes into the point of that's the expense for these wonderful opportunities, but it's an expense, and maybe that would help us understand other greater expenses in other areas. So.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the field trips? Okay, can I have a motion? Somebody?
I move to approve the field trip
All right,
request.
can I have a second? Second, okay. Thanks, Patricia. Any further discussion? No, all in favor? All right, they're going to France. Awesome. Let's see, next is 10.3 personnel items. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, we just have a few resignations. Isabella Jackson, special ed teacher at Fisher Mitchell. I'd like to thank her for 1 year of service to the district. Abby Height, speech and language pathologist. I'd like to thank her for 2 years of service to the district. And Brandon Ward, who's here tonight, I'd like to thank him for 9 years of service to the district. Then,
yeah.
And then one retirement, Elaine Stone, who's a food service assistant at Fisher Mitchell, and I'd like to thank her for 31 years of service to RSU1.
And then, yeah, go ahead.
And then if you're comfortable taking this as a group, it's a
Yep.
fairly big group, but I'll try to go down these fairly quickly. It may not be in the order that you are on your agenda, but I'll go by the order of the backup. So first we have a nomination. Principal at Phippsburg Elementary School is Nina Willett. We had 10 applications, interviewed 4 people. A lot of you may know Nina. She's currently the principal at Georgetown and was also the dean of students at Woolwich. And if Nina would just stand, because I know she's here. And next we have a social worker at Bath Middle School, and pleased to nominate Michelle Harris. We had 7 applications for interviewed. Michelle has been a social worker in our district, mostly at the elementary level for the past 2 years with the COVID positions. And Michelle is here tonight. So Michelle, I don't know whether you still have an injured leg, but you could stand. That'd be great. Thank you. Next, we have nomination for gifted and talented teacher is Kathleen Willis. We had 1 application, interviewed 1. She's currently our gifted and talented teacher at BMS because we had a leave of absence, as you know, and so we're excited to nominate her. Next, we have Madison Birch. Madison, you're here tonight, so if you could stand, that'd be great. Nominating her to be a gifted and talented teacher at Fisher Mitchell and Phippsburg, and she's not new to us because she's been the last 3 years as a ed tech in the gifted and talented program. Next, we have nomination for band director at Morse. On your backup, it says just Morse, but it's about 70-30 split, 70 at Morse and 30 at BMS. And our nomination is Matthew Gordon, and he is the director of music at Wiscasset Middle School, High School right now. And before that, he was director of bands at Camden Rockport. And next, we have academic interventionist at Phippsburg, and we're nominating Caitlin O'Donnell. We had 3 applications, interviewed 2, and you can see her background and experience there. Then Jericho, you're here. Go ahead and stand up again. And so Jericho is, we're excited to nominate him as pre-engineering teacher at Bath Tech. We had 3 applications, interviewed 1 person, and Jericho has been with us as an ed tech since 2022, I believe. And before that, he was a long-term sub for us in our math department at the high school.
Awesome.
And I think that's it. So if you're comfortable, no, I'm sorry.
you have
Sorry,
Ryan.
Ryan Monroe, another familiar face to a lot of you in the district. Ryan has been with us as a physical education teacher and health teacher and interventionist since 2021. And now he will be nominated to be in the role of phys ed teacher and health teacher at Dyke Knoll, Phippsburg, and Woolwich. So we're excited to nominate him as well. And that's it.
Great. So we can take all these together. If, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just to confirm, these are positions that were not additional positions. These positions we're filling because they're absence in the position, right?
Yeah, it's retirement or resignation.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you. That's right. And also, just to clarify, the 2 gifted and talented teacher positions, are those both full-time positions?
Yes.
And the band director, that's a full-time position?
Yeah, 70 at Morse and 30 at BMS.
Okay. And the pre-engineering teacher, that was a current, that's also filling a position. That
The
was
retirement.
Retirement,
Yep.
yeah. Okay. So I guess, just as a comment, when I look at trying to fund mental health in our school systems, I look at all these wonderful other additional teaching positions that we have, and I ask, is there any room for, if we're desperately trying to keep kids from committing suicide, is there any other position there that is not like as important or as required as adding a new position for mental health positions? And I just ask, like, because I'm trying to find any possible way to fund these much needed services, and I believe they are needed. And so I can see 3 full-time teachers here that, positions that.
That what? I mean, these are positions we've had. These are positions we're continuing with. We're not at a place, we're not currently at a place where people, it's okay, we know. It's all right, we got it. We're not debating these positions. This isn't the time. You've already stated where you're at with this. We get it. But these positions already exist. And so you can weigh all these things, but we've already talked about that you start eliminating certain programs. That's also detrimental to mental health. I don't think the board, for everything that has been cut, everything that's still going to be cut, I don't know that people have the stomach to be cutting more right now. And that's just where we are. And you've stated several times where you're at. I get where I totally understand it. But by bringing this up when we're about to nominate positions that already exist, we're not cutting things right now.
I'm
I know,
just
but it's the way.
raising the point to try to show how I'm
No,
trying to figure out.
I know how you're trying to figure out. You've stated that several times.
Yeah.
And there's right now we have the administration, everyone has worked very hard to make the leanest budget they know how in this environment at this time when every cost of everything is going up. We can't find any place else to cut. That's just where we are. That's just where we are. And we'll find out, because obviously whatever we come up with a budget, we put it out there. If everybody from Woolwich and half the people of Bath show up and vote against the budget and vote it down, then guess what? We have to come back and then we have to make all those cuts. But what we're hearing from the community so far is that's not it. We're trying to be responsible. You could go with one of these budgets that would raise everything 10, 12%. We can't do that. We know we can't do that. But it's, this is, we're trying to do the best we can. And I totally understand where you're coming from. But
And I
this is not the
understand
time
your-
or place to when we're about to nominate teachers to great positions. And we're really happy that we went through the process and that this is who it is. So can I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate the teachers listed
The
here.
slate.
Yes, the slate.
Thank you. May I have a second? I'm sorry, who has it? Patricia? Okay. All right. Any other further questions on, everyone understands the positions and all that, right? Okay. All in favor? Great. Thank you all very much. And those were the nominations. Now 10.4, I'm going to turn it back over to Patrick.
Yeah, you have a list in your backup, and this is something we have to do every year. Probationary 1 teachers to probationary 2, and you see the list that takes up the top half of the page, and then the bottom half of the page is those teachers that we're recommending to go from probationary 2 to continuing contract.
Which means they're, just for the newer folks, that means it's off, they're coming off probation.
Right.
So that,
Yep.
okay.
And so this is a list that we bring to you,
Yep.
every year for your approval.
Right. Are there any questions on this? You good, Kurt? You understand? Okay. Everybody understands what's what. All right, then I would look for a motion.
how do I word this? I move to approve the
To approve.
probationary and continuing contract staff.
Yep, that works. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Jamie. Any further discussion or questions? Then all in favor? All right, that's great. Thank you all very much. Now we want to go to, we had switched this, so it's board goals. I don't know if we have, Jennifer, you usually refer to the board goals for us.
I understand that we're surveying the community about our late start changeover, and so I think that addresses goal 1 for communication.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We have to go into executive session regarding pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D to discuss labor negotiations. And when we come back out, all that's left is just announcing some dates. So yeah, I'll have to get a motion to do that. And then we'll come back because we have to officially come out of it to adjourn, but there's no other context. Nobody's missing any content. So you don't have to hang out unless you're just, really like hanging out in the gym. May I have a motion? Oh, did we? Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. So first I need a motion to go longer. Yes.
I make a motion that we extend the meeting time tonight.
Okay. May I have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor? Thank you for that, Jennifer. And then now I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Okay. And second, all in favor? Okay. We're going into executive session.
I'm going to go down in the office.
Out of executive session. Please.
I move to come out of executive session.
And a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, we are out of executive session. And the next meeting dates, remember, 6 o'clock. Is it going to be right here? Or do we know? Yeah.
Yeah, either here or in the fishbowl.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I don't know if more people are going to
Yeah.
show up. They might.
Yeah, we might just have.
So that's 6 o'clock a week from today is the special board meeting. And then our normal board meeting is that the third Monday because of,
Yeah.
because the fourth would be,
Our district budget.
no, I'm saying it would be Memorial Day, right? So
Oh, that's true.
is that right? Anyway, it's the 20th.
Yep.
I remember if it's the third or fourth. Okay. So May 20th is our other one. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? All right. Thank you all for everything. Appreciate it.